Okay, guys. Well, I know it's not the norm, but I am someone I like punctuality as much as I can afford it, and I respect everyone's time. So we're going to get started. Everyone else can just watch the recording afterwards.
Perfect.
Um, and then the purpose of this meeting, I promise I'll keep it brief, but I want to highlight, as the event was stated as, the importance of video marketing for successful businesses here in Las Vegas. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. This is pretty much the only city I've known. I've been across many other states, but I just haven't moved anywhere other than Idaho one time, and man, that was something. It was not enjoyable for me. So I really love Vegas. I find myself, I guess you can call me a veteran in this space, even though I am pretty young. I've been in the agency for over 5 years now. It's my own grown baby from scratch here. Me and my wife launched this agency 5 years ago, and so I hope that you get something beneficial out of today. You'll learn a little bit more about the current state that we're in right now for social media, for video, and apply these tactics to your existing business, whatever it may be. I know that a lot of my current clients are in the real estate space. They're financial experts. I also work with a lot of attorneys. But for the purposes of today, this call will be applicable to any type of business. And I also market it exclusively in Vegas because I love my Vegas people. I definitely want to help out the Valley. But even if you're listening to this call right now and you're outside of the Valley, I think you're still going to be able to get a lot out of it. And I want to give a brief shout out. I'll give him also an opportunity to talk to my business partner, Lee. He's also attending the call. And Lee brings with him just a wealth of knowledge. Lee, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Lee Cummings. Thank you, Marlon. I've been working with Marlon for maybe about, I don't know, 6 or 7 months now.
Yeah.
I've been in Las Vegas for about 2.5 years or 3 years, close to 3 years, I guess. Time really flies when you're in Las Vegas. I don't know if we're in some kind of vortex or something like that, but just feels like time is going by very, very alarmingly fast. My background is I am a filmmaker. I've worked with a lot of business owners. I love small business owners from, small micro cap to like anything under $15 million. I worked for a gentleman by the name of Michael Gerber. I was like his son, basically. Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth. And if you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki's stuff, if you do any sort of real estate stuff, everyone knows Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In the back of his book, he says, if you want to learn about small business in America, make sure you read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. So I learned a lot about small business. And more importantly, I know about how to tell stories. So that's why kind of one of the reasons why I'm here. And I'd love to tell business owners stories. So with video and marketing put together, it's kind of a dangerous threat. Go ahead, Marlon.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lee. And that's one of the things I'll do is I'm gonna list off stats, and these stats, pay attention because I've curated them with the purpose of helping you understand, if you don't understand already, that we live in an era where social media is not an option or a luxury or a pastime or a hobby. It's a way of functioning in the modern business space. It's a way of having your operations online. And a lot of people think of social media as something that is a little bit more on the superficial side. Maybe it's something that I can stack on top of your existing operations. It really isn't. It is something that has to be intertwined with your current operations. I don't care if you're even in something that is so far removed from social, even if you're like in the world of manufacturing, there is such a space for you as well. So I'm going to get started. Let's look at some stats here. There won't be anything for you guys to look at, more so just listen. So according to big data statistics, we consume, well, I'll let you guys guess for a little bit. You don't have to answer, but just think to yourselves, how much data is truly produced every single day? You may be thinking in terms of billions, trillions. You're actually wrong. In terms of data that we produce every single day, we produce 2.5 quintillion bytes. Now, for a lot of us, we think in terms of gigabytes, thanks to the mobile phone era. So in terms of gigabytes, that's 2.5 billion gigabytes every single day.
Wow.
So when you're thinking about and a lot of business, well, I don't want to say gurus, but professionals, we think of this phrase, staying top of mind. Staying top of mind is extremely difficult when you have so many other pieces of data floating everywhere consistently. How can you do so while you're offline? It's impossible. It's almost a paradox when people tell me, hey, you know what, I want to run a business, but I don't want to be on social, or I don't want to utilize video tactics. And this isn't a rant, but it's more so just for you guys to understand that later on we're going to talk about busting a little bit of myths. I think having that little paradigm shift and is really critical in understanding how you can improve your video strategy. Now let's think about in terms of the type of people that are using social media. Is there truly a decline? Is there a growth? What does that look like? Well, as of 2022, so even now this metric is a little bit outdated. You're looking at 62.5% of the world's population. That's 4.9 billion people are currently actively using social media. So I don't want to hear anything from the peanut gallery when they say, hey, you know what, my audience just isn't on social media. Okay, so is your audience like newborns, 1-year-old babies? I mean, everyone that really, encompasses every type of general statistic is on social media to some degree. I don't care if you're 90 years old. I can easily procure a list and go through TikTok, go through Instagram, and look at the amount of 90-year-olds that are still on social media or that have recently discovered social media, and vice versa. Regardless of the group that you're in, there is an opportunity for you to make money off of the audience. And that's not a vulture, mentality. It just truly is what it is. It's another trade of the economy. We have to think of social media instead of thinking it in terms of, visibility and views, which yeah, it's what it is. But in truth, it's an exchange of currency. We live in an age where we're exchanging our currency for attention and views and recognition, because we know that will subsequently bring more business. Now, I'm just going to continue going through a couple other line items, and I promise, I want to get to the crux of this meeting, which is how you can improve your video marketing. But I want to bust this myth. So the myth that I commonly hear, across my clients and my other fellow agency owners, which is, okay, so people may be on social media, they may utilize it a lot, but they don't care about brands. They're only there to hang out with friends. They're only there just to have fun. It's actually not the case. When you look at, and I'm just kind of pigeonholing on my expertise. I do Instagram marketing a lot, so that Instagram, Meta. I also am on TikTok. We do YouTube ads, but I want to talk about Instagram because generally that is the most, I would say, catch-all social media platform when it comes to different types. So to sound more universal, let's use Instagram. 90% of users follow at least one brand. And this is as of 2022. The number's likely around 94% right now. So 94% of people are actively following brands already. They do care about them. They do care about your business. The problem is that if you do not make yourself into someone that is, as Lee mentioned, a storyteller, if you're not telling a story, why would anyone care, right? It's this idea of being able to successfully portray a narrative is the object that we all struggle with, right? Because we're not used to this. And I understand marketing used to be a little bit different. It used to be more so something where you can just drop money, you drop it on a billboard, a physical billboard, you get the recognition, you get the views, people would react to that, and then subsequently you could get business out of it. Nowadays, the saturation of advertisements that people consume is just so heavy to where you just can't get away with doing that. Even online, people will say, okay, I have successfully navigated from physical billboards. I'm away from that. Now I'm on e-billboards, or in other words, I'm on paid ads. I'm on static paid ads. Is that good enough now? Unfortunately, no, it's not either. Because now electronic billboards or digital ads are also super saturated. But then how do you get business out of it, right? Well, you have to reach a healthy medium of entertainment and value, or as Patrick David said, valuetainment. Valuetainment is really the future, and I don't even want to say it's the future, it's the present. If you are not providing value, if you are not being entertaining to your customer base, I don't care if They are looking to purchase a home from you. I don't care if they're looking to get a Roth IRA from you. I don't care if they are looking to purchase, a bikini from you. It doesn't matter. If you aren't providing value, then your credibility goes down. And guess what? They can just more than merrily go on to the next competitor that is willing to provide that value and entertainment. Even when it comes to quality, we think of large retailers like Walmart. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Walmart's not known for their quality, but they're so good at what they do because they are pervasive in their marketing. You just know that Walmart is there. Their placement, even in terms of, it may not be so heavily digital, because they've established such an in-person presence, but their presence is so dominating that you don't care if there is a better mom and pop shop just down the road. But because you are so used to the marketing, you're so used to the brand that is Walmart and the ease of access, that you're going to go right there directly. A lot of people also tell me, they'll be like, hey, I don't understand why this guru is just spewing this bad advice and why everyone is eating it up. And, what's going on? Why do they believe this? I'm so much more educated. I bring so much more value. I understand my local market. Why are people not flocking to me, yet they're going to this, online guru that lives 1,000 miles away from them, and they're taking that advice instead, and that malpractice? Well, it doesn't really matter that you know your stuff more than them. They are portraying themselves as an expert. And because they portray themselves as an expert more successfully than you, then people believe that they know more than you. You get what I'm getting at, guys? Video is extremely important, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. So let's move on to the next point: conversions. So when we're thinking of conversions, again, so we've already dispelled myth number one, which is, are people even considering working with brands? Okay, yes, they are. 90-something% of them already follow and actively engage with it. What about checkout, right? Now, I know checkout is a term that is coined by e-commerce, but regardless, your point of sale, your clear to close, whatever you call it, whatever gets you the moolah, what is going on in there? Well, you'll be happy to know that, again, hearkening to Instagram, 70% of buyers check out a brand on Instagram before making a purchase. Now, that's not to say that they don't also check it out on Facebook, or that they don't also check out your brand on TikTok, but we're talking as a whole, in all types of demographics. You're talking about 70% of buyers checking you out on Instagram before making a purchase. Now, and this is, in terms of, when we're thinking of making a purchase, we're thinking of something that's really easy, right? Something that's really spontaneous. We normally think of like an e-commerce purchase, right? I want the heels. I look them up online. I check them out on Instagram. I buy them. Unfortunately, not a lot of our businesses are like that. A lot of our businesses are very long-term when it comes to the sales cycle. I'll hearken to real estate again. The typical sales cycle for a real estate lead, from someone that hears about you to purchasing a home or selling a home with you, I can tell anyone it's definitely not 30 days. No. Maybe it was in a different market, but now it's lengthening on. Before they even reach out to you, you may have a lead that investigates you for months on end. It could even be years of them just checking you out, checking out your transactions. Maybe it's not the right time for them, but they're curious. They think about you. They'll see you once in a while. What does once in a while mean? Well, it could mean once a week. It could mean you come across their stories once a month, or you could never come across their stories and they think that you're out of business. And unfortunately, that's also what happens, is that people get too focused on sharing a story and making what they would call the perfect creative. The perfect creative doesn't exist, because people perceive creatives in different ways. It's subjective, right? And so a lot of times people also make this mistake, and they say, okay, I'm ready to get on video. I am fully committed. I am going to make the perfect video ad. And what do? They spend all their budget on just one video. That's it, just one. And they say, hey, I'm done. After this, I can't do anything. But what they don't think of is, they don't think of distribution. And so when you have the perfect video made, and Lee, I'm gonna pick on you for a little bit, because I know that you deal on this a lot. What happens when people purchase what they would deem as the perfect video, and then they don't do anything with it.
I think the thing is, that's why I think we match so well in doing business together, is that I always felt like, not like I was taking or stealing from the client, but in the old ways of the old marketing ways, and currently to how you're marketing now, is that I'd make this awesome video and they spent all of their money on this ad with me, or not even an ad, but just the commercial itself to tell their story. And it was awesome. But what do you do with it afterwards? And there was no distribution and there was no thought process out of that. So I started, pushing down prices for myself because I felt so bad for the business owner, because I surely didn't know how to do that. I know how to make things look great and make them look like a national level commercial for not that much money. But the issue was for me is that we couldn't do anything with it.
Exactly. And I think you hit it just right on the head. And I think this also goes back to, people's misconceptions about what a truly successful marketing campaign can cost. I think we think of historical terms. We think of, tens of thousands of dollars for this campaign and this and that, and that's not to say that people are not fluent in business. There are many great business owners that just simply don't understand it, not because they're not fluent in business, but because they have the business education from the 80s, from the 90s, from even early 2000s, where it truly did cost an arm and a leg to have a successful campaign. And that's why people went into exorbitant amounts of debt in order to do so. But nowadays, it's a lot more accessible for the average Joe, or for the, semi-professional business owner or the top tier business owner. You don't have to be the owner. You could even be the top performer, in a brokerage or an agency. You can still make incredible video campaigns, incredible marketing campaigns. And you can do so, generally under 10 grand. The problem is that people, they hear about these micro budgets, they hear about the outsourcing, and it's not to say that there's not a time and place for outsourcing. I think outsourcing, your virtual assistants is a fantastic thing. Outsourcing your sales follow-up is a fantastic thing. Outsourcing your marketing, especially when it gets close to, your branding, which is so intimate. Outsourcing that is very dangerous, because that can lead you down a road of being misconstrued, and it can also lead you down the road of having bad expectations. And it's not to say that every single person that is offering you an offshore sales funnel is a scammer. That's not the case. Obviously, being in the marketing industry, I do come across a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, but it's not the case. The problem is that someone that doesn't understand your industry, that is just selling a cookie cutter program, will not yield you success, because what happens is they will just copy and paste the same campaign. And guess what? Your business is unique. And so what happens is when you spend, your $100 a month marketing campaign and you think, oh man, this is great. This is the golden ticket I was looking for. What happens when you do that is that you forego the strategy. So there needs to be a strategy in place before you can launch your video campaign successfully. And I think that's what a lot of people forget about. And I hope that if you're listening to this, whether it's live or you're listening to this later on, you can understand that there is a need for strategy. That's not to say that you have to book with me or whatnot, but you should consult a professional agency that understands how to deal with your local market. Locality is important. I don't want you to reach out to someone that lives, in Dubai or even in Canada, even our next door neighbor, because they don't understand how the local market functions. Lee, you had a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, the comment that I had, and I wanted to dovetail what you said about people spending their budgets in a way that these days things have changed, and how immensely equipment has changed throughout the years of shooting from film. I've shot 16 and 35 millimeter actual film, so it's a lot more accessible. And to that point, it's made the industry, in my industry, a little, I know, kind of a misnomer is wishy-washy, because there's a gentleman I worked for in Silicon Valley. His name was Andrew King. He wrote a book called The Cult of the Amateur. And what that states is that, when I was working with Andrew, he was awesome, is that because there's so much technology now, if you're not working with someone that knows about business, or that's actually, and I always tell myself a filmmaker because I'm a director and a shooter second, but like these videographers, because they have a camera, that means instantaneously, I know how to shoot your campaign or your video to tell your story. And that's a misnomer, because everyone can go out and buy a $5,000 camera or a $2,500 camera, whatever that is. and your brother or whoever else, you know, Nancy or Dave or whoever it is, Charlie says, I can shoot your ad for super cheap. And they do that. And like Marlon said, at the end of the day, you're left with like, what are we going to do with this? So you just have to be careful. I think that, you know, with spending your budget and how you're spending it, you know, with people that are saying from the marketing side, also from the video side too, as well. It's really, if you haven't seen the book, you should read it. It's a great book, but it just talks about the cult of amateur, which is very, I mean, even more prominent now today than it was 10 years ago when I think Andrew wrote the book. You just have to be very careful these days because everyone has a camera now. And everyone's
exactly. You know, and it's funny how people feel that they can make an exception to that, you know, in the marketing space where you absolutely would not in any other space, right? If I am if I purchase a surgeon's kit, I can purchase a surgeon's kit if I would like to off Amazon and make it look extremely legit. I can rent out a space. I can get some syringes, but you wouldn't want me to do heart surgery or brain surgery on you because I'm not trained to do so.
Right.
Just because I can buy a camera, you know, I'm in front of cameras all the time, you know, both in the spokesperson space and also helping direct and helping produce people's marketing campaigns. That doesn't mean you should call me for camera. You don't want me to do the camera work. You know, I'm here to help you with your marketing strategy. In that same sense, you can't just delegate that way. So I'm gonna get started, guys. Very briefly, let's talk about this strategy, right? Let's talk about how we can actually make the best out of our video. We are living in an age where the average American is exposed to, and I want to get like a little drum roll on this, little makeshift drum roll. You know, people have said 500 ads a day. People have said 1,000 ads a day, and the number just continues to get updated. So the number that I mentioned now may even be outdated, and it seems almost incredible to believe because we consume so often that we don't think about it. But the number is on the low end, 4,000 to up to 10,000 ads per day. That's nearly double than just in the last decade. Okay. That's 5 times as many ads as the average American saw in the 1970s. So when you're thinking about your campaigns, and I know that, you know, marketing gurus and business gurus, you know, sort of like Gary Vee, you know, they have done a lot of great things for the industry and helping people get the drive and the determination to want to become entrepreneurs. But one of the double-edged swords, the negatives that they have done is they have kind of infected people with the thought that as long as you make more, it's eventually going to be good. And that's simply not the case. You know, if you do a really poor ad and no one tells you about it, no one, you know, has the the candidness to tell you that it sucks, because you didn't consult anyone, you didn't ask it, and you think, oh, well, it sucks, but that's okay because I have a camera, or my cousin, you know, is a videographer or whatever. Let's just continue to make more and more and more and more. What eventually happens is you get burnout, you get tired, you get frustrated, and, you know, and then you say ridiculous things like marketing doesn't work anymore. So cautionary tale, the last one. Steps to great video marketing, guys. The proof is in the pudding. In this case, the proof is in the audit pudding. So if you are listening right now, I want you, if it is safe, if you aren't just driving around, I want you to pull out either your notes app on your phone. You know, it's funny, I'm tempted to say that first before I say pen and paper, but also if you have a pen and paper, why not? Take it out as well. And I want to give you some time to put your thinking caps on and think about where you currently are everywhere on social media. And now I know social media, I even have to define the term because everything kind of blends in and becomes social media in its own space. In this instance, I want you to consider things that normally aren't considered social media as social media. So for example, if you currently run a Spotify podcast or any type of audio related marketing tactics, I want you to count that as social media because that is used for your business. Clearly, you aren't creating a podcast for the fun of it. Or if you are creating it for the fun of it, you should think about monetizing it because we're in the age of monetization. So I want you to think about podcasts. I want you to also think about blogs to an extent, even though that's not really the domain that we'll speak on. If you, by some miracle, have a blog that gets a lot of views, you can think about that. If not, let's just go back to social and let's think about the basics. Your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, whatever it is. And I want you to perform an audit. And I know when I say audit, people get scared and they want to run away. But I don't want you guys to run away. I want you to face the music. And I promise you, it's very easy. 9 times out of 10, every single social media that I have mentioned has insights and analytics that are right there on the phone itself. You can perform a quick Google search on how to locate those. Generally, if you go, this is just a general rule, guys, don't take my word on it, but if you go to your profile section, you should find an insights or some type of tab around there. And I want you to click on that. And if you don't even have that set up, then you definitely need a consult. There's no way around it. But if I'm able to take you this far, I want you to go there and look at those insights. Generally, your social media platform of choice that you're looking at will give you an overview of about 30 days. So I want you to look back at your last 30 days. And I want you to write down somewhere what that number says in terms of reach. Okay. And now you may not know where reach is. Reach means the amount of individuals that have seen or come across your content. Okay. And I want you to think of that in relation to, this is, of course, only if you do business in person as well. I want you to think about that in relation to the amount of in-person business, or I should say reach, that you get as well. So let's say, for example, if you are an insurance agent and people also come to your branch, or you also come to networking events. So think about how many faces you meet. You know, it could be 100 faces. It could be 500. It could be 1,000 faces that you see in person. You could be just a really social butterfly. That's awesome. And I want you to think about your online stats. How do they pair up? How do they match up? Because currently the way that you should be leveraging social media, if you are truly using social media right, your social media stats should absolutely demolish any type of in-person events that you are doing. You know, unless you're like a Grant Cardone and you are regularly in front of millions of people in some kind of stadium every single day, I tell you, you absolutely have no competition when it comes to social media. If your in-person stats are higher than your social media stats, there's something seriously wrong with your strategy. Don't freak out. It's still fixable. You can still do so. But you should definitely be in the thousands. That's for sure, because we're talking about reach. So reach doesn't mean that they bought anything from you guys. That just means that they came across your social media at least once in the 30 days. And when you're thinking about competition, I want you to also hearken, and I want you to think about the competitors that are currently in your space, in your local market. Okay. So again, I'm going to place myself in someone's shoes. Let's say right now I'm going to be a baker. Okay. And I'm a baker right now on social media, and I have my small little social media handle. And then let's say we do some research and we find out that there are 5,000 other local bakeries around me. And let's also further analyze hypothetically, and let's say that half of them are on social media. Okay. So now I'm directly competing with the online presence and the online space of 2,500 other bakeries. My odds don't look too good, do they? It almost seems that if I want to make any difference and I want to stand out there, I'm going to have a decent social media strategy. I'm going to have to post often, but I'm also going to have to be valuable. Now, when it comes to that, that number that you had in mind, I want you to think about that number in terms of reach. I also want you to dig a little deeper. And I want to look at the other metrics, the other KPIs. And I hope, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So if I sound like I'm speaking a foreign language, that's okay. I want you to think about the interactions. Okay. So interactions mean your likes, your shares, your comments, your direct messages. What are the interactions that you're getting off of social right now? And again, compare those to the interactions that you get in person. How do they compare? How many, in-person interactions do you get? Do you get someone that just randomly says, hello, how are you doing? Hey, I want to do business with you. I'm curious about your prices. Well, unless you own a brick and mortar, you normally don't get that sort of action, unless you're somehow blessed to live in the middle of a population where people just come and flock to you, right? So again, we're talking about interactions. And if you're only reaching, I'm going to use simple numbers here because I'm horrible at math. I know Lee used to be a math teacher, so he's great at math. But I'm going to use really basic numbers, guys. Let's just say that your reach for the entire month was just 1,000 people. Okay. And let's use that 1% rule. Okay. If only 1% of them were somehow interested in your business, what are you looking at? 10, maybe a little under 10, individual likes or comments or shares or whatever those interactions are. Okay. That's great. But that's just consideration. Consideration doesn't mean buying. So what does it take to get to buying? Let's use that 1% rule again. If out of those 10 people that interacted with you, only one of them ended up being a qualified lead, well, guess what? You are really just not using social media to the benefit of it, because you would have done a better job just cold calling someone and reaching them directly and hopefully, making some type of warm connection or even door knocking, right? So that's not how we want to use social media. We want to be very poignant when it comes to the strategy. We've got to think in thousands. We got to think in macros. We have to think in large amounts of numbers, and we have to think about what that conversion is like. Because at the end of the day, what I'm giving you is I'm giving you a very simple method of discovery, right? We're going from 1,000 to 10 to 1. Okay, that's great. But that is assuming that the content you put out is even good. A lot of what I see is, unfortunately, again, it's not me going against quality or whatnot. But if your content seems exactly the same as someone else's, and the only differentiator is just you're swapping the name, unfortunately, you're just adding to the noise of social media, and that's why it's not working for you. You want to create something that is truly impactful. And I don't say that because I have some type of sentimental feeling towards marketing, or I think that marketing is just something that is just so amazing. I don't. I think about it in a logical way, right? It's a numbers game, guys. So when you are thinking about your video creatives, you're thinking about how you would funnel it. You have to think in terms of segmentation, in terms of campaigns. If you're not familiar with social media and how these campaigns work, I'm going to work backwards, okay? Think about email campaigns. Now, historically, email campaigns, the way that conversions would work, this is a very outdated metric. It would say you need around 7 interactions until you get a conversion. That number is no longer the case when it comes to social media. You're talking about maybe 12 to 15, depending on how high or low ticket your item is that you're selling. It could even be 20 interactions before someone actually buys something from you. Okay. So if you're just getting 1 qualified lead per month, think about how many other interactions it would take for them to actually buy from you. Let's say it takes 10 other interactions. You're talking about just having 1 sale in 10 months. Of course, social media is not going to work for you. You got to be insane if you think that works. You're going to be completely out of business. So you need to improve your numbers game. You need to do an audit. Okay, moving on to the next phase here. Now, I promise, guys, we're about 40 minutes into this. I'm not going to let this go over the hour. In fact, I'm going to actually cut it a little bit short. But if you are interested in continuing this conversation, you want to book a one-on-one or even a 2-on-1, obviously, I want Lee to be on here as well. If you have any interest in doing any media-related items, you want some video, please be in touch. But again, this isn't me trying to pitch my services here. I just want you guys to understand the value of video and why it's so important. Okay, now I want you to, now that we've gone into this perspective of auditing ourselves, what are our current assets? Okay, let's think of assets. This isn't a financial class, I promise. I'm not thinking about assets in terms of, do you have a home, or do you have a liability? Do you have a car? I'm talking about digital assets, and I'm talking about equity assets. Okay, so in terms of equity assets, like who is there to help you create these type of campaigns? Has it just been you yourself, just trying to onboard all this crazy marketing information? Again, I hearken it to you, being a mechanic, and you have to have heart surgery. And then you're like, well, I don't have the budget to talk to a doctor. Why don't I just buy a medical kit and operate it on myself? That's exactly what you're doing if you're trying to take on marketing and trying to simultaneously run your business. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Again, I understand the big gurus will tell you that do it yourself, be on content 24/7. The reason they say that, guys, is because they are backed by investors and they have millions of dollars to whittle away until they get a profit. A lot of these Fortune 500s can go 2, 3, 4, 5 years without making a single profit, but because they have that investor backing, they don't care about it. Let's think about Uber. Uber is actually not very profitable. They don't really make a profit. Let's be honest. When it comes to looking at their stats, but overall, of course, they've been such an asset to our economy. Yet they themselves don't see a great outcome. So don't be like Uber in the sense of working yourself to death. Having very, very low margins and zero to no return, just so that you can say, "Well, I do my marketing by myself." It's not something to be proud of, guys. I promise you that social media and video marketing is a lot more affordable than it used to be. And if you invest in it and you do it right and you have a strategy, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Now, I want you, this is the last time where we're going to think retrospectively. Okay. If you have been in the business for a while now, whatever your industry is, and you have ever done some type of marketing effort, some type of outreach, I want you to think about how that came out. What was the overall outcome? Okay. So if you ran some type of paid ads, you try to boost social media on your own, or maybe corporate gave you some free marketing campaign and they ran it for you and they said, "Hey, this is going to grow your business." I want you to think about that. How did that pan out? What exactly were the key outcomes in terms of numbers? Did you get 2 new clients out of it? Did you get 10 clients out of it? Did you gain more recognition? Did you get more referrals out of it? Did your business expand? Did you get more recruits, more hires? Did you establish yourself? Did you gain more market share of the business? If you're consistently checking no, 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 well, guess what? You need to look out for your own business. Don't worry about corporate. They won't get their feelings hurt. Don't worry about your cousin that likes to do marketing. They'll live on. They'll find their own clients. They'll grow and be successful. Worry about yourself. If you are not getting the outcomes that you want out of your current marketing, it's time to dump it and dump it immediately. Now, with that being said, just because you hire a new agency within the next 24 hours, not saying it's me or anyone else, it doesn't mean that you're going to fix your problem. Because marketing is a long-term game. I don't care if someone says they can give you leads in 24 hours. They sure can, but it's bought data. And if you're reaching out to someone with bought data, they can tell it's ingenuine, and you can definitely still gain some business out of it, but you're forever dependent on that person selling you new, fresh data. If you want to become someone that has business come to them without you doing this consistent, nonstop outreach, not that you will ever need to just stop reaching out to people, period. There's always a game for that. That's sales. Without it, you'll die. But if you think that having people come to you is important, then you need to be leveraging marketing. And it's as simple as that. So with that, I'm going to start to close out the conversation. And I want you to think about, and you don't have to, write this down now. You can just think about it and maybe come back to it the next day, because I know that it's later on in the evening right now. And I want you to think about 3 KPIs, okay? KPIs are key performance indicators that would be important for your business to achieve success. Okay, so what does that mean for you? Does that mean that I will have to, get on 20 new calls for the day, or will people have to book 50 appointments on my lead funnel? Maybe I don't even have a lead funnel. Yikes, you definitely need some help. That's okay. Or does that mean that people will have to check out my item, or that they'll have to subscribe? Whatever that qualifying metric is, how much of that do you need? If you're not happy with your current situation, how much KPI growth do you need? Do you need to improve yourself or your business by 10%, 15%, 25%? Does it entail 75% growth for you to have a happy life? Again, not a life coach here, not my business. But what I'm saying is that if you're not currently satisfied with your marketing, you need to do something about it. And don't be afraid. Promise, we don't bite. But with that being said, I'm grateful for you guys that showed up, and I will make this video accessible for anyone that could not make it today. Right now, I'm actually going to open up the panel for questions. So if you guys could please do so in the interest of everyone's time and to save our ears from incessant noise, please use the hand raise thing and I will get to you as soon as possible. So if you have any questions, please, I'm open ears. Debbie, I know you joined earlier on. If you have any questions, please feel free to shout. I'm here to help.
Yeah, thanks. I guess just as far as cost, what do you think is a reasonable, maybe annual expectation on a comprehensive marketing plan?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I would say it definitely depends on how extensive that strategy is. For example, I've worked with clients where I've given them a very high level type of approach where I tell them, hey, these are some key topics based on your industry that you should cover. And maybe, month one, you focus on this, month two, you focus on this. And alongside that, maybe you have 5 or 6 subtopics that you should promote on social media that you should create. And I can give you an outline of the different types of ways that you can do so. But that's very high level. Having something that's a little bit more detailed can obviously be a little bit more expensive. Something such as, instead of me just giving you high level, now I'm actually writing the scripts for you. And that also depends on whether or not you are comfortable, depending on the type of business you're in, being the face of the business. If you're not, then the other conversation is, okay, do I hire maybe someone that's a brand spokesperson or a brand ambassador to do the speaking for me? And they say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I work for Debbie, and I'm here to represent the brand. I'm here to grow the brand. You guys should follow us on social media. Here's why, we're the best in what we do, right? Or whether that's going to be you. And I think that really depends. To answer your question, I want to try to answer it to the best of my ability. I would say, because of the fast-paced nature of social media, I would not recommend you getting a fully detailed strategy set and done for the whole year. I would much more recommend doing something on the max of a 6-month marketing strategy that someone develops for you, or even a 3-month, or I should say a quarterly marketing strategy. That way you can assess the growth behind it, and then you can decide whether or not you want to pivot. Because marketing, of course, is a testing game. And the last thing you want to do is purchase a marketing campaign, a year's worth of marketing strategy from someone that doesn't know what they're doing, right? So sample it out, I would say. Sometimes you can purchase a 1-month marketing strategy that someone will write up for you professionally, and that can cost under $1,000. Sometimes someone will develop an ongoing monthly strategy for you. That's typically something that I'm a fan of. That way it holds both parties accountable. So for example, a month-to-month retainer, essentially, where someone will pay you and they'll develop the first month of content. And then as you go on and you enjoy the performance, you'll continue that and they'll continue to build out your marketing. I definitely think you need a high level approach of, just to get an idea, right? What does the year look like? But I don't think you should commit to having a whole laid out strategy, because social media, man, I tell you, it moves fast. So whatever I draft up now in February 2023, if I'm set in stone with that, it may not even be accurate anymore in December 2023. So that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. Now, Bella, I know you joined earlier, and it's funny because we were also on a call before this. Do you have any questions? Feel free to shout.
I kind of almost have a lot of questions. Marketing is very new.
That's okay. I'm here to help.
I do a lot of self-promotion, of course, as you know, and then helping to promote other people's businesses as well. I think one of the things that I'm trying to do is how can I end up marketing more attention and gathering more followers, because that's something that I've been trying to do and work on as well. I can talk to people and they want me to follow them. Okay, well, there's only a certain limit that I'm wanting to follow, because I'd like to end up having more followers than I'm following. So just figuring out that approach as well.
I think that's a wonderful question, and I actually get that pretty often, which is how do I improve that type of ratio or following back, or how do I become sticky, right? And basically, how do we stick onto people to get them to continue to want to consume our content and to follow? I think when it comes to that, you have to think of the amount of value that you're putting towards in your content. It's one thing for, let's say, myself to share what I'm doing day by day. That's great. That's maintenance for people to understand, hey, I'm alive, right? I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm here in the industry. It's another thing for me to consistently provide some sort of asset that people want to consume. So I would say if you're struggling with attaining followers, think of something that you can do every week to give them value, that you yourself put yourself in their shoes, right? Maybe if it's something related to modeling, obviously I know that you're in that industry. Think of maybe some cheat sheets that would help you kickstart your marketing, or I'm sorry, your modeling career, or think about some things that really would have helped you in terms of knowledge, things that you really would have wanted to know when you started in your industry, and make a list of those things. And I promise you that you will need a couple of sheets at least, because once you really dedicate time to coming up with content, you're going to find a lot of ideas. The problem is just deciding how to execute, right? So again, I'll direct you, to marketing strategy, or if you want to undertake that on yourself, just have a realistic timeline about how you're going to produce that. And again, Lee, I can push on you. I'm sure that people, when they come up to you with a video campaign or a video plan, they'll tell you so many things. And then, you'll ask them, okay, what's the final runtime for this? And like, oh, well, I just want it to be under 1 minute, or I'm not asking too much, I just want it to be really short. It doesn't work out that way, because they're so overwhelmed with all these ideas that they want to do, but they don't know how to deliver it. That's the problem.
Yeah. Delivery is everything. And I was going to ask Debbie also too, what industry she was in, just off the top of my head. Debbie?
Oh, I work in commercial real estate.
Okay, great. Awesome. I know I'm originally from California, and so I had a ton of friends, and I had to take my real estate license way back in the day. But yeah, I kind of understand that realm a little bit, but it's kind of, I know what I was doing before is for agents and stuff like that, and then in commercial real estate space was doing a kind of a monthly or weekly thing, because they were doing leasing of offices and stuff like that. I'd come out, shoot good videos of the leasing spaces, and have the agent talk about the space and stuff like that, why it was so great. And then also too, selling was a little bit different also too as well. But yeah, understanding the industry, and that's what Marlon was talking about, which is the cookie cutter mentality of a lot of this stuff, is that, specifically that people have to understand what industry that you're actually in before they can actually come up with any kind of, pricing structure for things. And I found that, being younger way back in the day when I was doing that stuff, I didn't understand that. And now being here and being 51, I understand a lot more that, really what Marlon and I both do really well is that we listen to what the needs are, and then coming up with a plan around that. Because a lot of times people the first thing they're going to do and also to Bella too as well, they just come up with an idea of what everyone else is doing, as opposed to listening to what your needs actually might be. That's the most important element here. And I know that Marlon does with that consistently, constantly, a lot that he does really well, which is finding out what you actually need and what you want, and try to linking those two together between social media services, as well as coming up with a campaign. So that's why I'm kind of here. I like telling stories, and I think that that's probably the biggest part that people don't do these days. We don't get a chance to know the nuances about you and why your 10,000 hours matter. And then I work with one more name I'll name drop real quick. For the life of me, and this is funny because he had no marketing. I'm not sure, Debbie or Bella, if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss, but I did the first video for Tim Ferriss, and Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. He's been on Jimmy Fallon. Wow. The guy's phenomenal. And I was trying to rally people in. And when I lived in California to Palo Alto, we were at the Barnes & Noble or something like that. I couldn't get anybody. It didn't matter what we did at that time and how good the book was. Nobody knew who he was. And there was not any kind of marketing strategy around his book. It was more like just kind of like, hey, let's just go out there and do something. Eventually, people started reading it, and he, started to hit up some some awesome vloggers from Tom Fremsky to some of, iJustine and all these people that were like really taking this stuff on when vlogging was the newest thing about 10, 12 years ago. Anyway, long story short, you can't have a shotgun mentality. Not to say you guys are doing that, but just like I've learned so much to really listen to what your needs are. So.
It's in that same sense as consumers, right? We consume so many ads, and a lot of times we don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you want to do is become that one annoying, completely irrelevant ad. I know that every one of us has received some pretty targeted ads, and you're like, wow, they're like practically reading my mind. They're right on point. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, you get this ad that's like completely out of left field, and you're like, "Who is this marketing person? Kick them out!" Right? You don't want to be on the receiving end of that, and you don't want to be promoting that. You want to come off as someone that is extremely targeted towards someone's problems. You want to solve problems, right? That's basic business practice. So I won't keep you guys for too long. I think this has been a really fulfilling chat. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. If you want to continue the conversation, I'm going to drop some information. Obviously I have your guys' emails as well for signing up. So I will be sending you some of our contact info, but if you want to research us right now, my agency is Golden Medina Services. We've been serving the Vegas Valley since 2017, happily doing so. We've worked with Inc. 5000 companies. We've worked with solopreneurs. We've worked with everything in between. So we're happy to help. That is the best way to reach us. Within there, if you click on the link tree on our Instagram, you can book a consultation. Or if it's easier, you can just DM us your availability directly, and we'll be happy to chat. Otherwise, I wish you guys a wonderful and safe night.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.